Hey guys, Hijinks here, and I'm back to do a spoiler review of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Now, we did a non-spoiler review, so if you want a non-spoiler review, I will have the link to the non-spoiler review in the description down below. And I highly recommend, if you haven't seen the movie, please watch the non-spoiler review. It tells you everything I'm going to tell you here, but in a little less detail. Well, maybe not everything. There's a lot more we're going to go into here. I'm going to kind of give you a real big breakdown. I mean, I wrote down a lot of notes here. So hopefully, there's some things I'm sure I'm missing, and I'm sorry. And if there's anything I'm missing, please comment it down below. But we have a lot of notes here. I've actually been reorganizing and clarifying the notes since Friday. So since the last video's release, actually a little before last video's release, I would even wager probably Thursday night, I started writing the spoiler review script, hoping to have it done by Monday. But because I wanted to be really, really good and go over with a fine-tooth comb, I read through the notes so many times that I was able to break it down, and it is now Wednesday, August 21st, when I am recording this. And hopefully I'll have it up by Friday. I wanted to try to get 2 videos out this time, maybe 2 videos out next time. I don't know if we're going to go for straight movie review next week, because I kind of have a few interesting ideas, some stuff about horror. Hopefully you guys are interested in that as well. I'll also have a review as well, because I do have something I'm going to be reviewing as soon as I'm done with this review here. But without further ado, let me hop into the video here. I kind of want to speed through as fast as I can, so this way I'm not taking up too much of your time, but there is definitely a lot of detail. So the movie opens up in 1968, Mill Valley, PA. And this is actually a great time for me to jump in there and remind you, spoiler review, that doesn't really ruin anything, but everything after this is gonna ruin it. So if you haven't clicked off, please click off. But if you want to watch the spoiler review, thank you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the spoiler review. But like I said, 1968, Mill Valley, PA. We see the teens are going through their day before Halloween. We see that there's a character, Tommy, who kind of plays the bully, and he's trying to enlist in the army to fight in Vietnam. He's very, very, very interested in it. This becomes very important later on. We see Stella taking care of her father, and we see that she's a writer, and that kind of by looking at things in the room, we're able to kind of gather that. We see that Chuck, which is one of her friends, is actually fishing for poop for a prank. They're going to pull a prank later on, which, again, that comes up a little bit later. And he ends up making sure that Stella and Augie are going to be in and not bail on the plan. The group meet, and as expected, the group kind of gets swooped in by the bully character, Tommy, who tries to steal their candy. However, he gets a flaming bag of dog poop in response, and it is realized at that moment, actually, the bully's on a date with Chuck's sister. Her name is Ruth. The trio runs off to kind of escape the bully, who is chasing after them. And the group ends up running into a drive-in movie theater, and they end up hiding in a stranger's car, and that stranger's name is Ramon, and he becomes part of the group. Tommy catches up with them and says a variety of kind of hurtful things. We're just kind of glance over that really quick, but there's one real big thing that kind of plays into the story. There's a lot of hurtful things he says, but one of the things that's kind of really focused in the plot is that he talks about Stella's mom, and that makes Stella upset because Stella actually blames herself for her mom running away from home. The group makes their way to the haunted Bellows house after this encounter to kind of get Ramon in. Ramon's kind of new. They notice he's not from the town, so they bring him to the Bellows house. And when they get there, they kind of go over the legend of Sarah Bellows. It's believed that she was a child murderer, and she was disowned by her family, and she was locked away, and that she would tell kids scary stories who asked, and after she killed herself, the kids who heard the stories would disappear. So Stella tells Ramon the story, and they end up breaking into Sarah Bellows' room. At this point, Chuck is trying to scare Augie as a prank, and he's hiding in this wardrobe. But when he peeks outside to see if Augie's in the room, he ends up seeing an older woman and a dog outside. He quickly closes the door, and this is actually followed up by a pretty well executed fake jump scare of Augie scaring Chuck by opening up the door. It definitely, you could see it coming, but I thought it was pretty nice. The group reunite in Sarah Bellows' room, and the bully catches up, but he's trying to lock them in the basement. But before he can do that, Chuck's sister Ruth ends up trying to stick up for them, trying to get him to back off. Now, I really like this because a lot of times you see in these movies, the sibling just kind of turns their back on their sibling and sides with this like stronger bully character. I like that this movie didn't just kind of go there. Like, Ruth was a genuine good sister and actually realistically a sibling. she was sticking up for her brother. She's like, this isn't right. You're not going to lock him in that basement. That's not fair. So I kind of liked seeing that. You don't really see that a lot in films, and I think that was really well done. I really liked that they added that. It kind of made it more sibling-like, and you could really tell there was that was just a well-written part. I really liked that. Too many times you see it just kind of like the sibling just joins the other side. But Tommy does respond by pushing her into the room and locking them all inside. Now, there's something that I kind of want to get off about Tommy is that he's just bad. Like that's his character trait. He's just bad, just evil. And I never really like having that just 100% evil thing unless they're the villain. Like Michael Myers in the Halloween franchise, that was good having just 100% bad because like that's scary. But Tommy's not really this main villain or anything. He's just not a nice guy. So just seeing like constant bad, it would have been nice to have some redeeming values. I mean, he does say some really horrible things, so maybe they could have scratched some of that. I don't know, but I get it. You think about the time period and things of what was said, but I never like seeing 100% just bad characters. I like seeing kind of well-rounded characters, but again, not every character in a movie can be well-rounded. Some characters can be flat, and he just happened to be the flat character. While locked in the basement, though, Stella does summon Cerebello by taking the book of Cerebello's, and by summoning Cerebello's, the door does get unlocked because Cerebello's ghost does unlock it, and everyone leaves and finds out Tommy vandalized Ramon's car with more hateful things, which again plays more like he's just... Trust me, if you guys see the movie, if you have seen it, the things he does, you're like, oh my goodness, this guy. The sister, her name, again, is Ruth, and she does apologize to Ramon for all of what Tommy did. Because she's sincerely sorry about it. I think that, he's the football player. She's, pretty person that's, smart and in plays. And so it just kind of ended up happening. These two popular people end up together. But you kind of see this, like, popular person who kind of feels bad and remorseful and really does side with these other characters. And I kind of like seeing that she's not just, like, I like seeing that. She loves her brother. She feels bad for the bad actions of the people around her. And that was really refreshing to see. They all do go home, and Stella does let Ramon sleep over because it's established that Ramon does not have a home and he could actually be sleeping in his car. They actually find a shirt in his car at one point, and they talk about if he sleeps in the car, and doesn't answer him directly, but you could tell that it's possible. But Stella begins to read the book as Ramon's asleep downstairs, and the story appears, and it's written in blood, and it's about Tommy. At this point, we go and cut over to Tommy as the story is being written, and Tommy is actually sent out by his mom to deliver eggs because he had forgotten to deliver eggs that night. And he ends up walking through the cornfield, and he bumps into the scarecrow. The scarecrow's name is Harold. Harold follows Tommy around, kind of going from post to post before actually busting into a full-on chase. But as Harold the scarecrow starts catching up to Tommy, Tommy stabs him with a pitchfork. Harold reverses this situation by flipping the pitchfork around and stabbing Tommy, and as Tommy tries to escape, you can kind of see out of his wound, he starts coughing up all his hay, and he's turning into a scarecrow. It's reported by the town that Tommy's missing, and a lot of people actually believe, and this is where it comes in the beginning, everyone believes he just ran away early. Everyone's like, oh, he just probably ran away to join the war really quick. Everyone knew he was very, very into trying to join in the Vietnam War, so they assume that that's kind of what happened to him. But Stella, Chuck, and Augie all do meet, and Stella does try to convince them about what happened, trying to tell them about how the book wrote a story, Tommy's now missing, and the story was about Tommy. Chuck does believe her because of that incident with the older woman and the dog, and Augie's not believing her at all. Stella meets with Ramon to tell him about what happened. He also doesn't believe her, but Stella does see Tommy as a scarecrow, which kind of confirms it for her. So Stella goes and tries to return the book, and Ramon comes over, and he finds the book on her dresser, which really freaks out Stella because she has just returned the book. And they both end up starting to freak out because as they're talking about the book, it starts to write a story, and this story is about Augie. Ramon and Stella are trying to contact him through the walkie-talkie and telling him not to eat anything. He doesn't really believe him, so he eats anything anyway. He ends up eating the toe. He does spit out, realizing that Stella was telling the truth, and he goes to run and hide. He ends up hiding under his bed, and Stella and Ramon are running to save Augie at this point because the corpse with the missing toe is now looking for him. And the corpse does end up finding Augie and dragging him, and he leaves nail marks on the floor, which Stella sees leading into the wall, which kind of suggests something later on. Stella and Ramon kind of begin to talk about everything, and she reveals that she does blame herself for her mom leaving, and she does blame herself for the disappearances of, Tommy and Augie. She feels like she could have done more. and then everyone ends up meeting up with them to talk. And everything is told to Ruth, but she doesn't really believe them, and she ends up leaving. And Stella, Chuck, and Ramon try burning the book, which doesn't end up working. And the group decides to work together to kind of research what's happening, because they figure if they research it, they can kind of get a better hold on it. And in this research, they discover a few things. That Sarah Bellows is in an asylum. She committed suicide in 1898, and in 1899, the rest of the Bellows family disappears. And she does find stories in the book for each Bellows family member. The book begins to write itself, and it starts writing about the red dot, is what the story's called. And they all look, actually, assuming it's Chuck, because he has a red dot on his shirt from ketchup that spit out, but then they realize it's about Ruth. And so they end up running over to try to catch up and save Ruth. And Ruth, at the time, is actually getting ready for a play. Everyone in the play is kind of like, hey, that huge zit in your face, you got to do something about it. So she runs to the restroom to kind of get rid of it. And Chuck and the group are just really trying to get there in time. You see, as the group is cut in between the group running there and Ruth, and you see a spider leg grow out of her face, and out of nowhere, a bunch of spiders just burst out of the zit and start covering her up. But the group gets there just in time. They're able to splash water on her and get all the spiders off, and she's covered in bites, and she ends up getting hospitalized. But during the research, they found out that there was a family that was fired. It was that from the Bellows house that they believe taught Sarah Bellows magic. So they end up going to that person's house, and they get the answer that she was never taught magic, but everything that's happening is purely rage. That Sarah Bellows is just so enraged that this was able to happen, that there is no magic behind this. But they do end up deciding to go to the asylum that Sarah Bellows was inside, and they end up sneaking in to reach the files because they're not getting let in. But Chuck has been having these dreams about a red room, and the red room has a pale woman in it that ends up, absorbing him, and then he's very scared of it, and he's really certain that that's going to be his story. So they end up going towards the record room, which is actually called the red room, and since Chuck has this dream that he views as a premonition, he ends up not going because he's like, no, this is the red room, this is it. So he ends up going somewhere else and wandering around the asylum, which ends up getting him chased while Stella and Ramon start going towards the red room. Sarah is the Bellows. Stella is actually who's going to the red room. I'm sorry about that, guys. But while Chuck is getting chased around by the employees, Stella and Ramon are getting to the records. They find out Sarah Bellows was kind of betrayed by her family. Her doctor was her brother, and that they were trying to frame her into saying that she killed kids, which wasn't really true because actually her family was responsible for having mercury in the water, and she was trying to warn the kids about the mercury in the water that was actually killing them. But to cover themselves, they end up trying to get her, to admit that she actually killed children by using electroshock therapy and a bunch of other methods that were very painful for her. And they listen to the recording, and they listen to Sarah be in pain. And then out of nowhere, an alarm gets set off because the employees set off an alarm. Everything turns red, and then Sarah begins writing and reading out loud during the tape recording Chuck's story, which I thought was pretty sick. I like that. That this recording starts reading it off. They realize it's writing, and they realize it's about Chuck. Everything turns red, and Chuck's trying to get away because he sees the girl from his nightmare pop up, and she's closing the distance, and the group runs out to try and find him, and as they get ready to catch up to him, he gets absorbed by the girl from his nightmare, and Stella does find his pen, realizing that the book did get him, and Stella and Ramon are actually arrested, which is nice to see. Not that it's nice to see someone get arrested, but it's nice to see that there's consequences for something like that, which is very illegal, very illegal to break into an asylum. So they got in trouble, and at this point we find out that Ramon is actually a draft dodger, and the reason that he actually been dodging a draft, he reveals, is because 2 months ago his brother died in the war, and he's just been avoiding deployment because he's been very scared of it. And then Ramon's story begins, and the dog at the police station is barking at a chimney, and the sheriff walks over to see what's going on, and body parts fall down, and the sheriff just shoots this talking head on the ground, which has no effect, and the creature reassembles himself and actually kills the sheriff and starts making his way over to Ramon. As the creature's jamming himself between the bars to go kill Ramon, Stella grabs the cell keys off the sheriff's dead body and unlocks her cell and Ramon's cell, and they're able to run out and get away before the creature can get through. And Ramon and Stella start to separate because Ramon realizes that this story is only for him. Like, this monster is after him. So if he were to do this, Stella can go to the Bellows house and make things right. So he steals a cop car and drives it off to kind of stall out the creature. And the monster does end up catching up with Ramon, and he crashes the car actually to stall him a little bit longer, and then he starts running towards the Bello house. Stella is at the Bellows house, and her story ends up beginning, and Stella's story actually gets her transported back into the past to like when all the Bellows were in the house. And Ramon does catch up to the Bellows house, but he's actually in current time. So Stella's in the past, Ramon's in current time, but through going back in time, Stella does get turned into Sarah Bellows, and she keeps trying to hide from the Bellows family members as they try to catch her and throw her down the basement. And Ramon keeps hiding from place to place, getting away from the monster, and he finds Stella's glasses on the floor, and Stella ends up getting caught and locked into Sarah Bellows' room. Sarah's spirit ends up appearing onto the chair, like kind of faded, and then she looks sort of human, and then she starts closing the distance on Stella and turns into a more monstrous approach. Ramon holds Stella's glasses, whispering to them, which ends up reminding Stella, because she can hear the whispering of Ramon, that she needs to tell Sarah the truth. So Stella tells Sarah that, through everything that she was going through, she was a victim. But acting as she has turned her into the monster that everyone made her out to be, which at this point Sarah kind of realizes was the truth. And so she lets Stella change the story. She reverts back to human form. She lets Stella change the story, and she ends up yelling to let out all of her rage. And the monster disappears as trying to kill Ramon, and so the two of them are actually safe. And at this point, the movie ends with Ramon accepting things and joining the army and no longer avoiding deployment. And Ruth and Stella end up teaming up to try and find a way to bring back their friends, which is some nice sequel bait. I hope if they go with the sequel that they do it right. I hope they don't rush it. I hope they do it right. So that is actually the nice play-by-play of it. You can see that there was some nice character development. I like that these situations kind of help the characters grow in one way or another. And I like that it kind of tied some important events at the time to the movie. Stella, was a very well-rounded character, and so was Ramon. And Chuck was also very well-rounded as well. He went from, very goofy guy, and he didn't stay goofy. He actually, when the situation gets hot, he starts realizing, like, this is serious, and I like that he ends up taking it all seriously. And so it was nice and refreshing to see that. Again, as you guys know, I do like the movie. I think that you guys should check out the movie. I don't think that this movie is like this groundbreaking film, but what I will say about this movie is I think that its effects are groundbreaking in a way. We get more practical effects, which I love seeing more practical effects in a movie. You can never go wrong with it. We haven't been getting a lot of practical effects in our horror movies recently, and so I feel like this would be a nice turn to see more of this. There was nice jump scares in there, and some of the jump scares were a little predictable, but there was a lot of nice moments in there. A lot of suspense was pretty nice, and it wasn't constantly suspenseful. And definitely, like I said, I think it held back in some aspects. It is a PG-13 horror. However, like I said, I really love the movie. I think that you guys will greatly enjoy it, and hopefully you guys enjoy the spoiler review. This is like my second or third time really doing a spoiler review, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to come up with a better method. I'm trying to get a little bit better at them. I actually tried to do this all in one take. We're almost at the 20-minute mark, guys, so I do want to do a brief little thing at the end here. At the end of all these videos, I'm going to shout out people who commented on the video prior. So I want to shout out Canadian Girl 1984, aka Sinata. Thank you, Sinata, for commenting. Thank you, Lord Savior, Jack Mullen, Zaste, Mud, aka TNA Pulling Gaming. I appreciate all your guys' comments, and I hope you guys are having an awesome day. I hope everyone's having an awesome day. But if you guys want to get a shout out in the comments section, comment down below, and I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope to see you guys all at the next video. Peace.